Hi, it's Kamon Reynolds. I've been promising for a while we would do a video on wax dipping, and we've shown you how to wax dip, but this one's just going to be information. What we're using, where we got it, several different boxes in different stages, and when we wax dip them and what they look like, sizes, dimensions, BTUs, all that fun stuff. So let's get started. So first of all, how I got into wax dipping was my buddy was doing it, and just like many of you are like, ooh, I would really like to try that out. And I was thinking, man, how am I going to let Laurel allow me to spend enough money for a dipping tank and all the beeswax, all the wax that goes into the tank? And I was thinking, I've already got a tank. See, Laurel and I used to do farmers markets and raise free-range chickens along with bees back when we only had about 20 or 30 hives. And we stopped raising all those chickens. We're doing about 2,000 a year. And this is a scalding tank that warms the chicken's skin to a certain temperature, and it is really nice. I mean, this thing did a really great job on chickens, but that was about 9 years ago. And we stopped using it because we were trying to really focus on doing one thing well instead of several things that we love to do. So here we are, right? But I was thinking, how am I going to be able to do that? And then I had this wax tank, or this scalding tank, and we turned it into a wax tank. And so I called David Schaefer up, and he is the guy that makes and sells these things. And I'm going to leave his link in the comments below if you want to check out either his chicken stuff or just see the tank that he has to offer if you like to use one to use for a wax tank setup. But I called and said, hey man, I'm really loving this tank. You'll never guess what we're doing with it now. And he's like, what? So I'm not sure how he feels about that. But if you do actually call or email them, let them know that Kamon said hey, because I played bluegrass with him a time or two. So anyways, let's get some measurements on this thing. This thing has, by the way, a 100,000 BTU burner on the bottom. So 100,000 down there. It's about that big around. I'm not going to turn the tank upside down so you can see it. There is a couple of measurements you'll need to know. First of all, the tank is 22 inches from the bottom of the tank to the top. Now, the area below that houses the BTU area and just kind of airflow and stuff like that is an 8-inch stand underneath the tank. And it has, this unit has a thermostat over here. It doesn't quite go as hot as I like, but you can definitely just wire around that thing so it doesn't come into play and you can get it as hot as you want. I recommend not going over 300. You have to be careful. The hotter it gets, the more it wants to foam quicker and more aggressively. So just watch out for that. But you can use it at lower temperatures. And that's one of the things with this is that it's kind of an art form. There are folks that run it over 300 degrees, do it for a couple minutes. There are folks that do it at like 225 degrees and do it for longer periods of time, some as long as 12 hours. And you know what we do is about 250 degrees at 15 minutes. It depends on the piece of equipment. Some of them will do as low as 10 minutes. But we don't. Everyone seems to do their own thing. I really don't have any solid proof that my way is excellent. My buddy in Hawaii does his at 275 or more, and he runs it for about 10 minutes. So there's a lot of variables there. And some folks, again, they just dip it for like 2 or 3 minutes and they paint over it. And we'll get into that in a second. So the other measurement is, it's a square, so we'll only need to do this once. It is 24 inches wide. So it is a 40-gallon tank. It's a stainless steel tank, obviously, and it is 16 gauge stainless. So just keep that in mind. I was talking to David about it when I shocked him with what we were using it for, and we were talking about different things, and he was just blown away that we were using it for this. Asked me a couple of questions himself, and so I was going to address that in this video on if the tank could be used later for chicken scalding. I think it probably could. Cleaning this thing out would be a pain in the rear end. What you probably would want to do is get the wax really hot, and then you just run it out the bottom into something you want to get it up, run it out that bottom, and get as much of that wax out as possible. And then you're going to want to fill it up with water and get that really hot, and then of course the wax is going to float to the top. And it'd be a really big pain, and you're going to have to get some really good cleaning stuff. You could probably use it again, but I'm never probably going to do that. It's a wax dipping tank now. So let's talk about the wax. Let's talk about the equipment. So many people ask this question, can you use beeswax for this? And the answer is no. There are even paraffins and microcrystalline, which is what we use, out there that you can't use because they have too low of a temperature threshold that they can be resistant towards. Now I'm sure that's probably the worst way to say that, but you want something that has a high temperature threshold. What we're using goes up to about 170 degrees.
Melting point.
Melting point?
Yeah.
Melting point, thank you. See, that's why I keep her around, because she knows stuff. I just talk. So the melting point, we like it to be around 170, 160 area at least. And that way on those really hot summer days when that sun's beating on your equipment, it's not going to come out of the wood. And I'm going to show you some different stuff here in a second. But I have used, experienced, I haven't actually dipped them myself, but I've experienced cheap paraffin boxes, and it's really gummy, and you can feel it on your hands. It's sticky, and that's not the way this is at all. This wax originally, though, it's a 50-50 ratio of paraffin and microcrystalline. I'm going to leave a link up here, so it's going to be right up here. It's one of our wax dipping videos, and in the description of that video, it has all the information on where you can source the wax that we do. It's out of Knoxville, a company called AztecCandlemaking.com, but also in that link it's going to show you the product number for the two type of waxes that we use for our wax dipping tank. It does a fantastic job. You can get cheaper stuff out there, but I'm one of those guys that wants it done right, and I really feel like this is a good product for that. So it was beautiful white at one point. We get sawdust in there, things get a little bit dirty. That happens. This wax dipping tank, I can stick about 8 or so lids. I could stick more lids than that in there, but the problem is lids want to foam a lot because they have a lot of edgewood end grain, which if you don't know what that is, that's like this right here. That's where most of your wax is going to go. And I can do 3 deep boxes at a time. Now, a lot of people ask me how much wax this thing uses. That is a really hard question. I don't really know. When we dip our deep boxes, it doesn't seem like it uses very much. I mean, I would be shocked if it was more than 1/8 of a pound. It could be a little bit more. If it is, it's not much. It could be 1/16 of a pound, which might be more accurate. I don't know. I haven't had the time to figure that out, and there's a lot of variables there. The type of wood that you're using, the end grain is really where it goes into. If you watch the videos, like the one I just linked to, if you watch it, you're gonna see that it's sizzling and just soaking up into that end grain super fast. It doesn't really go into this wood right here that's all nice and smooth. And your boxes, they're not gonna rot right here. Water just runs right off of it. It's in end grain, all those little gaps there, and where it's sitting underneath the lid and the box, and between this box and the bottom board or whatever, that water that's sitting there, we're able to soak up and penetrate into the wood and cause it to swell, cause issues. So that's why this is so awesome, is it basically creates an impervious coat. As long as you don't damage the box, it's going to really protect your equipment well. So let's talk about painting now. And a lot of people ask this question. So again, with the beeswax, before we get into painting, I almost forgot. Has too low of a melting point. It's going to come out of the wood. It just won't work unless you live in a very, very, very cold region. If that's the case, bacteria and fungi probably aren't going to be eating your boxes because they're freezing to death. So this right here is a painted box that we dipped afterward. You can see a little bit of the natural pine resins and whatnot coming out of the wood even after we painted it. Now this box was about that color right there. For whatever reason, it did not get quite as faded over there, but it will fade your paint. It doesn't look as pretty. This is an 8-frame deep box that's been sitting around. Now, you can see where the nails were starting to back out a little bit. You can see a little bit of damage over here. You can see a bunch of different things. And now, one thing I will say that on the paint, if you can feel a little wax because it kind of sits on that paint a little bit, and it just solidifies pretty quickly. And also, we are dipping this in very cold temperatures, which makes a big difference. If you do it in warmer temperatures, it drips off the box onto a metal plate like this over here. It's really filthy right now, but it'll drip onto that. But if it's really cold, it'll actually it'll get so cold so quick it'll stay on the bottoms of the boxes, and then you've got to scrape that off with a hive tool, which is very fun. But it does a very good job sealing painted boxes, and it definitely won't hurt anything, but it will make your equipment look a little funny. Now this is a white one right here, and so if you're painting your boxes white, I actually thought that made it, if anything, look a little bit better myself than what it was before. So that's doing a really good job. Now over here we have some bare equipment. You can just, there's no really wax on it. You can kind of see little scratches in there, but is that scratching the wax or is that scratching the box? You can do a lot with your fingernail onto the wood itself. So that's what I like about this. It's really high quality, soaks into it really good, and creates a hard wax layer instead of a really gummy one, which is some of the older ratios with using rosin and paraffin would cause. And there's just so many different methods out there. It's really hard to say what's best. A lot of times it's what's cost effective. And honestly, I'm one of those guys where there's so many variables. I want to focus on what I know works. And I actually saw my buddy in Hawaii use some high quality stuff, and I've seen where he did not. And so it was really beneficial for me to be able to see his mistakes. Thanks, Zach. So I could benefit and not have to make those. Now, what about painting afterwards? So if you got this bare equipment, if you pull it out and it is really hot, you've got to get onto it quick, but you can take oil-based paint and paint that on there really quick, and that is going to soak up into the wood with the wax. And that provides more UV protection. I don't know if it provides more longevity. Some people say that it does. I haven't been able to run my own tests, but it makes sense that it probably would because of the UV protection. A lot of beekeepers do it because it looks better. They like the paint look. The wax dipping over time is going to fade and get darker every year. So, it looks really nice in the first couple of years, but over time it does get darker and doesn't look quite as pretty. But, paint's expensive. Paint's something I don't enjoy doing. I'm hoping we're going to have enough time this year to be able to paint about 20 boxes or more each of latex, dip them, the latex paint, and then dip some in the oil-based paint. And just kind of see over the next couple of years how well they hold up for us, and then you all can make up kind of your minds if that's something that you would like to try to do. But if you do end up checking out these tanks in the comment below though, and you call up or email my buddy David, I play bluegrass and whatnot with him, just let him know that Kamon said hey. It's not like he's sending me money or anything, but it does make me feel pretty good if I can help somebody out who's doing a lot of cool stuff. He's been in the chicken business processing for many years, and they've got a really cool thing, and I like seeing local businesses do well. One of the reasons for that is because I'm a local business myself. So anyways, excuse me. It's cold out here. If you have any questions that I missed in this video, leave them below. Sorry if I did. Hopefully this will help you out and decide what you need to do. As far as cost goes, that depends on your resourcefulness, depends on a lot of different factors, but just like anything, it's beekeeping. So open up your minds and your wallets and be prepared. Ooh, be prepared. A bee pun right at the end of the video. Thanks for watching.